Hey, good morning. Welcome, everyone. Hope everyone's having a nice fall season. I see a bunch of names and thumbs up trickling in, a bunch of familiar names. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. As you're trickling in, going to launch a quick poll as we wait for other people to join. And we'll get started in another minute or two here.
It looks like a lot of thumbs up there, Josh. Lots of folks are coming from all over the world, it seems.
Yeah. Really appreciate everyone joining for Keeper's sort of new webinar edition. We're going to be keeping up with the Catch Up with Keeper monthly, but excited to be welcoming in other special guests more often, really just broader entertainment and exclusive sort of presentations for our wonderful community. Before I hand it over to our exciting guest, Mark Howard, a few updates from my end. By way of introduction, for those that have not met, my name is Josh. I'm from Keeper's marketing team. Throughout the presentation, please feel free to drop any questions in the question sort of portal. In the bottom right hand of your screen, you'll see a question mark there. Mark and I will be taking those at the end. Mark's also going to do a little bit of interactions with all of you and asking some questions, so feel free to respond as well. QuickBooks is around the corner. Would love to get a good pulse on who is going as well, so feel free to drop a comment in the chat section just to keep those questions and comments separate. And with that, excited to welcome Mark Howard. Mark, really appreciate you helping us out. Excited to learn more today. Mark's an emerging thought leader in the space, a two-time founder, and just has a wealth of knowledge to share.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, I hopefully standing on the shoulder of other giants. Definitely a lot of inspiration out there. Thanks for having me. And for those folks who are in the States, tomorrow's Veterans Day. If you are a veteran, any veterans in your family, thank you for your service. It is definitely a great occasion. So yeah, let's hop right into this. So let's go to, if you're done with the poll. So today we're going to talk about how to use strategic pricing and AI to build a 7-figure firm. And this is going to be chock full of information. I'm going to try to boil down over 10 years into 1 hour. So sometimes I might speed up a little bit, but don't worry, because you guys are going to get a recording at the end of this as well. So feel free to put me on slow-mo if I'm talking too fast or pausing, but we're also going to have a little gift for you guys at the end. So be sure to stick to the end to get that. Okay, so a quick little agenda. So first of all, before I introduce myself, I'm going to have a quick little intro, and then we're going to talk about the pricing outcomes and not pricing services. And we're going to go through the number one pricing mistake that most firms make, the strategies to command premium pricing, the formula for deciding when to automate, when to outsource, and when to offshore. By the end of this presentation, these terms are going to be a lot clearer, I hope. We're going to talk about 5 ways to leverage AI at your firm. I'm very passionate about this, and you're going to see tons of examples. And then, time permitting, we're going to go into some Q&A. And as Josh said, if you have any burning questions that you want to get in ahead of time, feel free to ask in the questions. And as I go through this, I'm going to make it very interactive. So we're going to be, feel free to use a little chat in the bottom of the right of your screen to answer anything that I might have coming up there. Okay, so quick little background about myself. A lot of you guys may know me from my newsletter in front of AI.com, which is we talk about accounting, we talk about AI, we talk about pretty much what's next in the field of accounting. I'm also the co-founder of a platform called Bookgel, which is a AI-based pricing tool that shows accountants not only how much they should be charging for their services, but how to actually price based off of outcomes. And it delivers a compelling presentation to your clients as well as pricing. So that's an AI platform. I'm also the co-founder of BizPay. Some of you may know me from there. BizPay is one of the largest payments providers for accountants in the U.S. right now. Just this year, we're processing just north of $100 million US in payments. So we're growing there. Many moons ago, I was at Gartner in the management consulting practice there, and some great stories back there. So in a nutshell, I help accountants earn more by transitioning from commodity services to productized outcomes. Okay, so if that's my little elevator pitch, if you met me at a cocktail party, that's probably what I'll say to you. So I'm going to dig into that a little bit, and at the end, we'll have some links so you can kind of follow us as well. I'm on LinkedIn. Some of you guys know me from there. Also on YouTube as well. And so let's go ahead and hop right on into it. So part one, price, outcome, not services. So Warren Buffett says, price is what you pay, value is what you get. I would add that outcomes are what you deliver. Now, I asked Warren and his team if they could update the quote. I haven't heard back from him or his team, but I'm not going to take it personally. So we'll see. So let's talk about something I call the leverage flywheel between pricing, AI, outsourcing, and offshoring. And I may say AI and automation interchangeably, but think of it like this. There is this interaction in play, right? There's different parts of this puzzle, but how do we actually leverage different pieces, right? Do we start with outsourcing? Do we start with pricing? Do we start with automation? Where do we begin? Well, I want you to know today that if you think of it as a leverage flywheel, one feeds off of the other, right? So the pricing strategies are going to fuel your automation plans and your outsourcing and offshoring, and the other way, right? So the offshoring, the outsourcing, and automation will influence your pricing as well, right? So ideally, you want to be able to maximize your fees, right, based on outcomes, but also minimize your actual costs for your operations and a lot of things at your firm. So we're going to kind of dig into that little interplay, but just think about that as you're building this leverage flywheel along the way. Okay, so how do I price my services? And this is the question I get probably the most. One great marketer, have you heard of Seth Godin? He's a marketer. I think we have just as much as hair, so we're both pretty bald. He says the reason it seems that price is all your customers care about is that you haven't given them anything else to care about. And I absolutely love this quote. There are almost a dozen pricing strategies for accounting firms, and we're going to cover a lot of these today. It largely comes down to positioning and outcomes, all right? And your firm is defined by the customers it does not have and the services it does not perform, okay? So the reason why I highlight it not is because so many of us get sort of inundated by, well, we want to be everything to everyone. We want to provide all these different kinds of services, right? We don't really have a niche, or we don't really have an industry that we focus on. And I'm here to say, try not to be everything to everyone, and you're going to be able to be more successful by sort of like filtering out and weeding out the customers that are not really a good fit for you. And outcomes don't just signify completion. They reflect your value, impact, and significance. They are basically the currency of the business world. Henry David Thoreau says, it's not enough to be busy, so are the ants. The question is, what are we busy about, right? And I mean, hey, it's November, busy season is going to be upon us before we know it. So it's not that we're busy. This is not about spending more hours per week. It's about doing more with less. But value isn't measured in effort or intention. It's measured by tangible, impactful economic outcomes. And the more value you generate, the more invaluable you become. Okay? One of my favorite quotes is, "It doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice." And that's by the Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping. And it really sums a lot of the principles that I'm going to be talking about today, because at the end of the day, the customers don't really care about the things that we think that they care about, right? When you say, "Hey, we have the best customer service. We've been in business for, dozens of years. We have a great team." Sure, but that's a baseline these days, right? Customers are expecting that, right? So how do you step out from the pack? So the number one pricing mistake is believing that effort equals outcomes. All right. So this might be a hard pill to swallow, but it's not about you. It's about them. It's about your clients. And it's actually not really even about them. It's about what you did for them lately. Okay. They're not going to, unfortunately, in these days of goldfish memory, it's you have to constantly be delivering for clients, and they're going to, unfortunately, for better or for worse, they're going to remember you for one of the last things that you've done. So you always want to be delivering and showing outcomes. And many accountants think, I did a good job and slightly improved something. I did my best. I worked hard. I did my job. But that's great if you work at the DMV, but that's not what people who generate or create massive value get paid to do. Those people get paid to own an outcome. Okay. So think through that, think about outcomes, and that is the mindset, right? We are positioning ourselves in the client's mindset. Customers don't buy from people they like, they buy from professionals they trust. And a professional is someone who is responsible for achieving a result rather than performing a task. Sure, we have all heard of, we tend to buy from folks that we like, that we know, that we trust. And that's true to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, you want to know that you're dealing with a professional, right? If I'm looking for an accountant, and maybe that's my old college buddy, who's, maybe drunk these days, it's not a good look, right? So sure, I like him, I trust him, but you want to know that you're dealing with a professional. And that's what a lot of clients are looking for these days. They want to be able to catch that professional vibe, okay? So when you need a critical job done, who do you seek out? A nice person who tries hard, or someone who has a reputation for getting done what you need done, okay? So the harsh truth number one is effort does not equal outcome. You do not get paid for your effort. You do not get paid for doing your best. You do not get paid for doing a good job. You get paid for outcomes, okay? And one of my favorite quotes is from the movie Whiplash. Any Whiplash fans, just feel free to pop it into the chat and say yes or whatever. Love this movie. One quote is, "There are no two words in the English language more harmful than good job." And, we say good job all the time. We tell a little Stevie and little Susie good job. But at the end of the day, as professional adults, we have to rise above just being able to do a good job. Okay. Okay. So harsh truth number two, your perception does not equal your client's perception. No one cares if you think you did a good job. They care about the outcome they purchased from you. And there's a critical difference between effort and outcomes. Okay. So pricing outcomes, not services. So if there is any chance that the client can perceive any service that you offer as a commodity, it is your job to position that service as an outcome. And we're going to talk about how to go from services to outcomes in the coming slides. This is most effective if you can position as either a financial outcome, a time-based outcome, or an emotional outcome, okay? And so financial revenue outcome, you're going to see a few methodologies I'm going to show you in a few slides for doing that. So basically being able to show some sort of tangible financial benefit or ROI, time-based outcome, obviously being able to save time, and an emotional outcome, that is the most subjective. And I'm going to give you a few examples here, but if you nail that, it's probably the most powerful of the three here. Okay, so let's look at this chart. I know it seems like a lot, but on the left we have services, right? And then we have the approach, right? So remember we talked about whether it's based on time, emotion, or revenue. And then we have what we are translating as an outcome, okay? So think of it like this. Internally, we know that we have all kinds of services, right? Coding transactions, standardized reporting, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, from a client's perspective, they don't care about you code transactions, or they don't care about what you're doing with standardized reporting or FP&A. They care about what it means to them. So, for example, instead of coding transactions, let's say if we took the time approach, right? Then that is going to be translated to automated categorization speeds up the accounting processes and ensures consistency, enabling quicker access to financial insights, okay? So you see what we're doing here. We are trying to go from positioning ourselves as just listing these services to actual outcomes. And this is a very useful exercise when you're dealing with anything external. Actually, it's a great internal task as well, because it gets the team riled up in terms of how they can actually deliver outcomes. So, for example, you'll see this. It's great to put these outcomes on places like your materials, your website, your landing pages, basically being able to go from listing these services and changing those into outcomes, right? So another one, standardized reporting, right? So instead of, hey, we offer standardized reporting, if you want to approach it from an emotional perspective, you say reliable standardized reports instill confidence during stakeholder presentations and financial discussions, okay? Reconciling books, revenue and emotion. Okay, so now we're actually starting to mix things a little bit. Accurate books can lead to better credit terms with vendors, enhancing cash flow and peace of mind. So you see what we're doing here. And this is actually pretty subjective at this point. These are things that I've used very successfully in using good language. You can totally copy this. I encourage you to put it in your own words, because you know your firm and your services and your outcomes better than anyone else. But this is just an example. When we go through this later on in this presentation, I'm going to show you 3 methodologies to actually be able to come up with a more compelling procedure to do this, okay? So let's hop into pricing. And when I think of pricing, I think about it as the pricing progression pyramid, okay? And at the bottom, we have things that most of you guys are really familiar with, right? We have things like, flat fee pricing, hourly pricing, competition-based pricing, cost plus pricing, right? And these are what I refer to as, just table stakes, right? And a lot of us are still doing this today, and it's okay, but there are better ways. And what I'm trying to show you is that the higher you go up to the pricing progression pyramid, from 1.0 to 2.0 to what I'm going to show you as 3.0, the more value you can extract, and the more your customers are going to actually appreciate it. Okay? Pricing 2.0, value-based pricing, okay? So what is value-based pricing? And there's a lot of great guys out there and gals that talk about various pricing strategies, value-based pricing. So Ron Baker, a good colleague, he talks extensively about value-based pricing. So you'll see a lot of methodologies that he refers to. I'm going to show you what I think is the next level, though. So value-based pricing is when you price your services based on what your clients are willing to pay or the value they perceive in your service. And it's often tiered or menu-based as a pricing mechanism. So maybe you have like a bronze, silver, gold kind of pricing strategy. You can use that for your prices or listing on your website. And there are advantages and disadvantages to this, right? So some of the advantages are you can improve client loyalty and sentiment if used effectively. It does help prioritize clients, and it's very effective when leveraging price anchoring techniques, okay? So when I say price anchoring, it means being able to, so for example, if you have that bronze, silver, gold plan, maybe you start with the gold plan, right? Because you start with your highest and showing them the highest price, and that effectively desensitizes them to that high price. And then they see the silver, which is lower, and then the bronze, which is lower. And so that's known as price anchoring, okay? And then there are disadvantages, right? So it requires you to have a deeper discovery call or a consultative approach to sales, and more complex to implement and maintain. All right. And before I get into the next one, does anyone want to guess what pricing 3.0 is? Feel free to drop it in there because it is it's one of these things that you may have to wrap your head around a little bit. And I'm going to go into examples that I'm going to help you with and things that I've actually used myself. Okay. And let's see how we're doing here. Just making sure we have folks on the chat. And okay, yeah. So it looks like lots of great questions coming in. Okay, so the next one is productized pricing. Okay, so productized pricing is what I call 3.0, and it's a combination of value pricing and creating products out of your services that require less work to fulfill and can operate passively. And this results in the highest profit margins since it includes what I call build once, sell twice products, such as courses, communities, apps, platforms, okay? And we're going to go into some examples and how you can actually do this too. So advantages. So there are higher profit margins involved with this kind of pricing. It has more passive income streams. It allows for more scalable growth. And it monetizes the prospects not ready to hire you, right? So a lot of you may have, maybe you have a CRM, you probably have a bunch of prospects or qualified leads, and they're not ready to hire you yet, right? They're not an actual client of yours, but they're kind of in your system. So why not give them something that they can start with? They can kind of get a taste, a good feel of what you provide. And that is if you are able to leverage products to be able to kind of fill that need, okay? And it drives up sales multiple when selling your firm. And we might have to do a whole nother session on this, Josh, because in terms of firm valuations, and I've been through many different kinds of exits, and one of the biggest factors on the valuation of your firm is recurring revenue, right? And there's a difference between recurring revenue and reoccurring revenue, right? So the reoccurring revenue is those kind of haphazard once a year things, maybe like a tax filing that they come to you every year for, but it's no guarantee, versus recurring, which is a subscription-based model where they are recurring to whatever services you're offering, maybe your tax preparation, your planning, your bookkeeping, outsourced CFO. They are recurring. Basically, they're subscribing to your services. So there's a big difference between those two. So when it comes time to exit your firm, we are talking about a difference between an industry average of a 0.75 multiple and between 0.75 to 1, which is pretty typical for selling a firm, to up to a 2 to 3x multiple to selling your accounting firm. And that is in the territory of SaaS businesses, right? Software as a service. And I happen to run two of those. So I closely look at the parallel between great accounting firms and the SaaS industry. And I am seeing a real progression to a lot of advanced accountants are really kind of productizing their services and are almost functioning as a software company. It's a really interesting model. So that's kind of like the pinnacle of where you want to be and into the matrix of productized pricing. Okay, so there are some disadvantages, right? So it requires upfront investment to create products. And you need to develop a product mindset. And that might be the most difficult. But the great thing is most of you on this call are accountants. So you are already meticulous when it comes down to developing things. And when I'm saying develop, I'm not saying develop software. Some of you guys are doing really advanced workbooks, maybe in Excel or Google Sheets. There's ways that you can productize those things. And there's so many other things that you can productize, but it requires coming up with a product mindset to be able to take advantage of that capacity. Okay, so let's just go through a few examples of productized pricing. And that little quick trivia for you. I've actually done all of these myself at my businesses. I've done all of these, and I'm going to walk you through each one. I've done all of these except for one. So if you want to leave something in the chat on, just tell me which number that you don't think I've done. Just kind of quick trivia. I've done all of these except for one. Okay. So first is business health check service, right? So instead of having an hour consultation call for free and that customer may never come on board with you, offer something of value in a mutual way, right? So a business health check service you can sell for $250 to about $2,000, and it allows you to catalog all the issues going on at their particular business. Now, it's not super in depth, right? So you may get access to maybe the QBO file, the zero file, maybe their last year's tax return. So you're able to kind of give them a quick barometer of how they are doing. And then that leads into a service opportunity that they can come on board with you later, okay? So we're starting with the product, and then we're going to the service. Tax planning strategy, right? So maybe instead of just filing their tax returns for a few $100, you can actually do tax planning strategy, where you actually give them a master document of exactly which strategies to follow based on their situation and their lifestyle, right? So that strategy can involve some really advanced and esoteric strategies, from maybe 1031 exchange, family limited partnerships, charitable remainder trusts, depreciation, bonus, Section 179. I mean, the list goes on. I'm in the midst of developing an internal tool for tax strategy planning. And it can be a really high ticket item. And this is something that you can actually sell in advance, right? So you can actually sell that. And then you can also have a follow-up with your recurring services agreement that has your monthly compliance and your maintenance, things like bookkeeping, outsource CFO, and so on and so forth, okay? Advanced QBO course, generative AI ChatGPT for business. So you can have guides and courses. Businesses are all over platforms like ChatGPT these days, and I'm going to talk about it in depth in just a few slides from here. But there are many ways that you can actually help clients and get them to think about how they're using generative AI. And by the end of this presentation, I actually have a little gift for you that is going to really help you be able to do that for yourself and for your firm and for your employees as well. Automated AR and recurring payments collection, right? So being able to automate their AR so they don't have to do it on a manual basis. Automated Google reviews upon successful payment, right? So imagine just, getting paid and then automatically allowing them to give you a Google review. So that boosts the business ratings, it boosts the visibility. It's a great way and a great program to be able to kick off. Okay, so let's just see here, just to see what folks thought here. I just want to check your answers as we go through this. And it looks like, okay. So, yep, the only one that I have not done is advanced QBO course, okay? And there's a lot of great QBO pros out there. Hector Garcia has a great course. There's tons of others. But yeah, so I've done pretty much all of these and monetized all of these except for that particular one. Okay, so let's, Josh, why don't we fire up poll question number 2, and you guys can see it on the bottom right there. It should pop up, and we'll just give you maybe a moment or two just to kind of get that out. So let's pull it up. Okay, and here we are. So poll question number 2 is, if a pricing optimization system could guarantee at least 200% ROI, what level of investment would you consider? So under 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 10,000, 10,000 or higher, you would not invest regardless of ROI guarantee, or I'm satisfied with my current pricing strategy. So we'll give a few moments to answer that question right there. And it looks like the results are coming in. Okay, wow, we have 31, 34, 35 votes pouring in. Okay, and I feel like a sports commentator, we're just like play-by-play, just how's the poll doing? And 37 votes. Okay, we have a few smiley faces. I love you guys. This is great. I really want this to be interactive, and thanks, Josh, for putting together this tool that we can kind of have these conversations and really interact with everyone as we're doing this. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap this particular poll up, and yeah, if this was a horse race, it'll be pretty close. It looks like most folks said, so we got about 39% saying about $1,000 to $5,000 for this, 29% under 1,000, 13% 10,000 or more, and 11% between 5,000 and 10,000. 8% says, I'm satisfied with my current pricing strategy. Congratulations, whatever you guys are doing. You might have, maybe you can share a few things with me. And then 0% says, I would not invest regardless of ROI guarantee. Yeah, you guys are on the ball. Well, let's go to the next part of this. Thanks for supplying that. And I just want to make sure we are getting in. And as Josh said, if you haven't had a chance, go ahead and type in any questions. Some of these questions may be answered along the way, but I just want to make sure that we get those questions in there and that we are making sure that we are answering as much as possible by the end of this. Okay, let's continue. So that was poll question. So part 2, should I automate, outsource, or offshore? And we're going to talk about the 3 methods to help you decide. So this is what I call the AIOO approach. This is method number 1. And this involves, so the first is automate. So tasks that are repetitive and require consistent execution without much variation, right? So that's kind of the definition there, right? So imagine, repetitive, consistent execution without much variation, that these are perfect tasks to automate. So for example, coding transactions, right? That's something that is particularly great for automation. And just drop a little hint here for all these Keeper users. If you're not a Keeper user, you might want to check out Keeper because it does a phenomenal job of doing that in an automated capacity. Okay, in-house, high value tasks that require specialized expertise and often have high or medium complexity. Okay. So these are things that you're going to keep in-house because of your level of expertise. Example, so financial analysis and forecasting, or maybe some FP&A work, right? So tends to be more advanced skill level things. Outsource, so high value tasks that aren't core to your business and might be better executed by specialized external entities. Okay, so it's one of those things that are kind of in between, where you want to make sure that it's done right. It's not exactly a commodity service; it's higher level, but you want to make sure it's executed at a high level. So, for example, maybe financial audits, right? Maybe you don't have the in-house capacity to be able to do that, but you do want to work with a professional that does that. Or maybe there's a conflict with your CPA practice because, maybe you're doing compliance and auditing, and that might be a conflict for you. Okay, and offshore. So routine and standardized tasks that don't require specialized expertise and can be executed at a lower cost in different locations, okay? So this is the AIOO approach. So let's kind of dig into how this plays out. Okay, so now, and just a quick example. So with offshoring, so like first line customer support triage, right? So you might want to be able to offshore that particular customer support. That's happening a lot these days. So let's look at this approach, right? And this is a little subjective. So let's go through this. So on the left, we have the task, and on the right, we have the approach, right? And this is based off of best practice. These are things that I personally use and kind of how I categorize it. So for example, coding transactions, definitely automate. Standardized reporting, P&L, cash flow, various KPIs, great for automation. There's tons of apps for that. Customer support triage, right? So yes, you can automate it, but you can also offshore that, right? So there's a lot of offshore talent that kind of lives and breathes. If you don't want to just have a chat bot randomly answering your customer service questions. reconciling books, right? So as we kind of go down here, you notice you'll see then things start to pick up near the bottom where it's more more outsourcing. And at the very bottom, you have more complex things, right? So advanced tax planning, financial analysis and forecasting. These are probably great candidates for in-house or outsourcing these particular things, just because they take a higher level of effort to be able to do. And like I said, this is not perfect. This is kind of a back of the envelope approach. This is what's worked for me. So I encourage you to kind of list through your services and tasks and just place what you think would be a good fit. And just kind of, like I said, think about, the more complex it is, the more likely it's going to be to do it in-house or outsourcing versus the least complex that are going to be more advantageous to do automation or offshoring. Okay, so let's talk about the value score. So the value score is basically, this is method number 2. This is where you take the total firm revenue divided by the hours you worked. So the lower the score, the better. And I'm going to give you an example on the next slide. So don't worry about understanding this right now. So the value score is a measure of your opportunity cost, okay? So the cost of you doing it versus not doing it. So make sure you are not doing tasks that could be easily performed by paying someone less than your value score. So let's look at an example. So example, the firm owner works 2,000 hours per year, so 50 hours a week at 50 weeks at 40 hours per week, with a total owner compensation of $200,000 and hours of 2,000. So the value score is, so that's the 200,000 divided by 2,000, which is $100 per hour, okay? So this means every hour the owner works generates approximately $100 in value. The owner identifies 5 bookkeeping tasks that each require 5 hours per week of their time. So I'm going to take, for example, 5 random bookkeeping tasks. You guys can enter your own, but we're just going to use this as an example for the calculation. So let's use AP, AR, payroll, sales tax filings, and monthly reconciliations, okay? So the total hours per week spent is 25. And the annual hours spent on these tasks is 25 times 50 weeks, or 1,250 hours. So the owner researches outsourcing rates for these bookkeeping tasks and finds between $30 to $50 per hour is the going rate. Since these rates are well below the $100 value score for the owner's time, it makes sense to outsource all 5 tasks. So this will free up 1,250 hours annually for the owner to spend on higher value client advisory work. So this is a quick calculation that you can do to kind of get an idea of where you are spending time. And the key take home from this slide is that you want to make sure that you're working with a value score that is conducive to what you actually do and mindful of where you should spend the most time. Okay, and method number 3 is what I call the client outcome score. So this is where firm owners should focus on tasks with the highest client scores and delegate or automate the rest, okay? So financial outcome. So the financial outcome is basically, we're gonna ask 3 questions, right? So the financial outcome is, does the service produce a clear financial outcome or ROI for the client? And don't worry, we're gonna go into some examples in a moment. So you're going to look at it. So what's the metric, right? So is it a high financial outcome? Is it medium or is it low? Same thing for time. So the question is, how much time does this save the client? Is it a lot of time? Is it medium or is it low? And then lastly, which is the most subjective one, and you'll get better with this at time, it's going to be, does this have an emotional impact on the client? And please do not underrate this. For a lot of my left brain friends, and we tend to be a lot of left brainers in the accounting world, you'd be surprised on how much emotion plays on people. And I'm not talking about manipulation. I'm talking about being able to appeal to things that really connects with them, okay? And I'm going to give you some examples here. And the same rating, right? So whether it's a high emotional outcome, medium, or low. Okay. And remember, this is not you. This is the client outcome score. Okay. So these are questions that you're asking in terms of the client. We're not talking about your financial outcome at your firm, your time outcome. We're not talking about your emotional outcome. I mean, I want you guys to be emotionally stable, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are optimizing this for our clients, and they are going to love you if you do this right. So let's kind of go into some examples here. So this method number 3 is, so on the left, we have the task, right? Remember that, right? Coding transactions, reporting. So we have financial, time, emotional, and then the score. So as I said, each of one of these is high, medium, or low. So if it is, so for example, coding transactions, is it high, medium, or low in terms of financial ROI? So I'd say it's low. It's important, but you can't really say, hey, we're going to code your transactions and, you're going to save, so much money. I mean, it will save them, but not as much as the other ones. Time. So it does tend to save clients a lot of time. Emotional, it's hard to make an emotional connection to that. If you have a way, let me know. So it gives a score of about 4. About the same thing for the next one, standardized reportings or financial statements, right? And as we go down, you'll see, so we have 4s and then we have some 5s, right? So like AP and AR. And then we kind of get into higher scores, right? So like, for example, retirement planning, advanced tax planning, financial analysis and forecasting. These are 3s across the board, right? Because you can make a compelling case for financial. So for example, let's just say, retirement planning. Well, of course, for retirement planning, there are many implications financially with this, right? And from a time and resource perspective, it takes most clients, don't know the difference between, a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA, right? So it's, there's a lot of research time that you probably already know. And emotional, right? It's being able to retire, have that nest egg, have that final outcome that you want in terms of, after your job. So it's a lot of emotional ties to that kind of thing there. So think about that in terms of these other categories as well, right? So advanced tax planning, right? A lot of financial time and emotional parts to this. So that's why it gets a higher score. So on and so forth. Okay, so now what you do is you put method number 1 and method number 3 together, all right? So I kind of chop this up a little bit just to make it easier to see, but you kind of see it side by side. So you'll see basically what I'm trying to show here is that the lower, the higher the score, the more likely it is going to be that you're going to do it in-house or outsource, versus the top where the lower the score, more likely you're going to automate or offshore. Okay. So looking at it all together, remember, we're going to go with services, and we're going to rebrand those as outcomes, and we're going to have a score associated with it. And then we're going to be able to list the approach. So when you go through the method number 1 and number 3, and you put those together, you should have an outcome of a final result like this. And this is a perfect way for you to figure out where you should focus your time versus delegating to other folks, whether that's outsourcing, offshoring, or automating. Okay, so the last part of this, and we are coming up on the last 15 minutes here. So this is going to go into the 5 ways to leverage generative AI in your firm. So let's get through this. And so is it a fad, right? This was me when I first realized ChatGPT can do my job for me. I was really excited, a couple years ago. But then I realized that, well, ChatGPT can actually do my job. Will I still have a job? I started getting concerned. I started worrying. Some of you guys may feel like that as well. I don't feel like that anymore because I have a better way to approach this now. And what about when you need that advice? You're not sure who to trust, right? How many of you guys are just typing into ChatGPT or figuring out, should I use a human or do I trust ChatGPT? It's like, who do I trust? Okay, so time to reach 100 million users. If you look at some of the major platforms out there, like Google Translate on the far left, it took them 78 months to get to 100 million users. And, that's monthly active users, okay? Whereas on the far right, we have TikTok, which took only 9 months to get to 100 million active users. Okay, guess how long it took for ChatGPT to get to 100 million users? Feel free to type it in there if you like. It only took 2 months, right? So I don't think it's a fad. It is only growing. They had their big announcement yesterday. I won't get into that right now, but it's only growing and it's faster. You guys are probably seeing a lot of headlines out there. Is it coming for our jobs? IBM freezing different jobs and expect to replace it with AI. PwC saying, hey, workers will abandon work from home so they can differentiate themselves from a robot, right? A heck of a statement, but so you see a lot of these threats coming along. EY, they launched a 1.4 billion AI focused platform. If you read my newsletter at In Front of AI, a couple weeks ago, I talked about the situation on there. So it's really emerging and it's catching up fast. But you'll see a lot of also on the other side, things like worker confidence and AI may be growing despite unease about the tech. So I think that synergy is becoming actually better. And my thoughts are that humans and AI are better together, right? So generative AI will be seamlessly integrated into our computers, our smartphones, eventually becoming a full-time personal assistant custom tailored to you, right? So you can think about that as your personal assistant, as your intern, right? They need a little nudge, a little training. They're not going to do everything perfectly, but the more they go and the better you train them, the better they become for you. Okay, so let's go into how to let AI take a load off your plate, right? So if you're an accountant, bookkeeper, or tax professional, you'll quickly find that understanding AI will give you an edge in practically all aspects of your practice. And remember, AI will never replace you. It's there to help improve your skills and augment any limitations. Learning how to effectively use it will give you an edge over your competitors and help you work smarter and faster. And think of generative AI as your smart virtual assistant or intern, as I said, right? So whether you're using ChatGPT, Claude, Bard, Llama 2, Vicuna, there's literally dozens of these generative AIs or LLMs, as they're called. So there's plenty out there. But just think about those as a helper to you. And remember, just like a human assistant, you still have to give it good instructions, right? So there's an expression, garbage in, garbage out in the tech world. So, the better instructions you give, the better outcomes you are going to get from it. And vague and ambiguous instructions end up with unsatisfactory or unexpected results. So use generative AI to save you time, money, and frustration in your accounting practice. Okay, so let's go into the 5 things here. So number 1, time savings, right? So you can automated responses, right? So quick answers to common accounting questions, data analysis, instant interpretation of complex financial data. If you guys are using ChatGPT, there's a feature called advanced data analysis. They change it to code interpreter. So you can literally use it to do advanced data manipulation and financial data manipulation. Really great. Report generation, right? So automated generation of basic financial reports and summaries. AI assistant management of your calendar reminders. So it's great for scheduling. They just released a new feature on Google Suite to try to automate a lot of that. Learning, so quick access to a vast range of accounting knowledge. Cost savings, so reduced need for additional staff. So generative AI can handle many routine tasks. Lowers your training costs, right? So the expense associated with AI-assisted learning. Efficiency, so faster completion of tasks leads to cost savings. And error reduction, right? So AI can kind of be that first jump for you to help minimize costly mistakes. And 24/7 availability, right? It doesn't need breaks, it doesn't sleep, and it reduces overtime costs. Enhanced decision-making, right? So data-driven insights. So generative AI can help analyze and interpret financial data. It does great in terms of risk management, so it can help identify potential risk and opportunities. Forecasting, it can help actually predict future trends and outcomes, right? So great data analysis component of it and forecasting on top of that. Scenario analysis, generative AI can assist in evaluating different financial scenarios. And if you have not used ChatGPT or Claude or Llama 2 or any of these yet, I highly encourage you to do so. There's free versions of most of these out there. If you do not know how to use it, or if you actually want to use it in your firm and not really sure to start, hang on a few more slides. I'm going to give you an excellent resource for you to be able to do that yourself. Okay, and then best practice, right? So leveraging the best practices based on deep understanding of the accounting industry, right? So it has, it incorporates the tax code. It looks at GAAP principles in accounting. It has so much research in there that you can just leverage, and it's at the tips of your fingers, literally. Okay, and number 4, improved client communication, right? So fast responses provide quick answers to client questions. Be careful with this, right? I know some of my colleagues set up some interactions where they have generative AI responding to their emails, but you have to be able to control that, all right? Or if you want to plug it into your chat bot, you want to be careful with that because sometimes it doesn't do a proper handoff. So just be cautious with that. It's getting a lot better though. Clear communication. So generative AI can help explain complex financial concepts in really simple terms, right? So, how do you explain a 1031 exchange to a 7-year-old, right? I mean, you probably shouldn't be explaining that to them, but if you did, right? So you can literally type into, for example, ChatGPT, explain a tax strategy called a 1031 exchange to a 7-year-old, and it will literally break it down into like simple 7-year-old terms that they could actually understand. It uses a lot of smart uses of analogies and metaphors. It's pretty incredible, right? I use this with my nieces and nephews all the time when they say, "Mark, we don't understand what you're talking about. Can you give it to us in simpler terms?" So I use generative AI for that. Okay, personalized service, so it can help tailor communications to individual client needs. Multilingual, can speak various languages. So if you are working with folks that are speaking different languages, it is scary good. They just did a new update just 2 days ago that on the OpenAI side that is just really phenomenal in doing translations. Document generation, so it can do everything from like reports, blog articles, lots of creative writing there. Just kind of a pro tip, if you're using it for like blog articles or website copy or creative writing, I would recommend, as of today, Claude versus ChatGPT, because I think Claude does a better job at creative writing. Okay, and then number 5, continuous learning and development. All right, so up-to-date knowledge. Generative AI is trained on a vast range of accounting knowledge. Unfortunately, ChatGPT cuts off at November 2021, but as of 2 days ago, they updated that to April of this year. So it has a lot of the new tax laws in there, and it has a lot of much more up-to-date knowledge. Claude does a good job of keeping up to date as well. If you're using ChatGPT, it does have a Bing plugin, so you switch it on and it actually can find up-to-date knowledge. So be sure to look for that. And as a learning tool, so it helps learn new accounting concepts and skills. I use it all the time when I'm trying to plan out various scenarios, maybe advanced tax strategies. I'm doing research and I don't want to look through all the code and I don't want to, reference all of this information. So I leverage it highly for that. But you have to be careful. You have to fact check because sometimes it can hallucinate, right? So it kind of makes a few things up. Customization, right? Collaboration, right? So using it and you can actually share your prompts with ChatGPT. And it can really do a lot of things. And I know we're coming up to the top of the hour, so I'm not going to go into these too much in depth. And I'll just kind of, just pick a few of these. It's really great for doing a lot of things like summarizing complex reports, proofreading, classifying data. If you're using it for newsletters, emails, and website content, it's really great for that. Being able to automate reporting. If you use something called Zapier, and actually if you are a Keeper user, I believe Keeper integrates with Zapier as well. So imagine being able to talk to 6,000 different other applications with using AI as well. So that's definitely a great tool to use. And there's other great things you can do, writing code, Excel macros. I build a lot of macros and Google app scripts for a lot of the tools that I use as well. and it's excellent for researching all kinds of folks that you want to work with in terms of outsourcing and offshoring. So plenty great examples there. So let me leave you with 9 quick takeaways, and I'm going to kind of go through this really quick because I definitely want to get to a few of these questions here. So guiding transformations and focusing on outcomes is the most valuable work you can do, okay? And think of compliance as adding a complexity tax to your firm, okay? Costs are better invested higher up the value curve. And price and position your service based on outcomes and the impact you deliver, not just completing tasks, okay? So you try to quantify that value. Remember, effort does not equal outcomes. And make customers sticky by building a trust, building trust as a professional for specific outcomes, not just liking you, as I said. And, remember, we talked about the value score, and don't do tasks with lower hourly payoff. Move up the value chain and begin to productize your service to really demonstrate value quickly. And then leverage automation to reduce the compliance workload, and focus on high value, high outcome tasks, and then leverage AI automation and outsourcing and offshoring to delegate the rest. Okay, let's hop into our last poll questions. And if we can get these polls up, then we'll also start to get into a little Q&A as well. Okay. So the next poll question, based on what you learned today, what topics would you like to explore further? Would that be strategic pricing? Would that be outsourcing or offshoring? Or would that be AI and automation? So go ahead and submit your vote for that. Okay. And then the last poll question, do you use Keeper? And if not, would you like to learn more? All right, so I'll give you just a moment to enter that as well. Okay, so let's just see. All right, the play-by-play on the poll. So yeah, lots of folks. Looks like AI and automation is really a huge thing. About 50% are really focused on learning a lot more, a lot more on AI and automation, about 44% for strategic pricing, and about 7% for outsourcing and offshoring. Okay, this is very valuable. And then the last poll, do you use Keeper or not? We'd like to learn more. Okay, so looks like a lot of Keeper users here, which is great. Great. Well, why don't we take the last few moments to go into a little bit of Q&A here. So let's just see what we can pull up. And I think if I have access, Josh, I think I can kind of start these questions here. Getting a lot of comments. Keeper is amazing. Hey, thanks, Bonnie. Charlotte, she is in love with Keeper. Okay, it looks like you're getting a lot of fan mail here, Josh. Let's see if I can get to the questions. Okay. Great. All right. So let's just see here.
Hey, Mark,
Yeah.
where is the best place to start to look into outsourcing?
Well, the best place to look into outsourcing is, I would ask that question to ChatGPT. I would literally ask that question to ChatGPT, because you're going to get two things. First of all, you're going to get its compiled knowledge on terms of like outsourcing and what to do, what to ask and questions. And it could literally give you a checklist to do. And if you use, for example, ChatGPT with Bing, it's also going to scour the web and going to find top providers for outsourcing as well. So I would say that's a great place to start. Don't just start with just trying to like Google the top providers. Find out the best questions to ask, right? Know those questions to ask, and then you can systematically interview different outsourced providers. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Let's see if we can find any. And if there's any other questions, guys, feel free to go ahead and put them in. Let's see here. We have one question here. So what's the best way to get started with AI automation? And thanks, Amanda. That's a really great question. In fact, it's a great segue because I'm actually going to give everyone that has made it to the end of this call a special gift at the end, and it's going to be my ChatGPT playbook. And it is almost 40 pages. So it's a mini book of step-by-step implementation things you can do and ways to leverage AI at your firm. Imagine 40 pages of figuring out what to do on the bookkeeping side, what to do on the tax side, how to hire, a tax manager, how to do outsourcing, what tools to use. Chock full of information. As you can see, I like density, so I'm actually going to give that away for free to everyone that has made it to the end. Again, we love you guys and thank you so much. Josh, I believe you're gonna shoot that out in the follow-up email. Is that correct?
That's correct. Everyone will get an email. I know these slides were dense and some of the amazing insights were a little harder to see. We'll try to include that as well for you. But Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. An absolute pleasure, a wealth of knowledge. Everybody that joined, thank you so much for starting a new sort of series with us to have amazingly smart guests on and learn from them. You will be getting an email after this with a follow-up. And again, thank you for spending the last hour with us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Josh. And then here's a contact information if you want to get in touch with us. Again, in front of AI.com. And of course, Josh with Keeper.app. Thanks so much, Josh, for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Yeah, bye now.